Hi, this is Raj from MR Sportscars. In this Diary of a Porsche Specialist episode, I'm going to be talking about two specific models, which is the 991 generation Carrera 4S Coupe and the Carrera 2 Coupe. Both are very similar, but there are some subtle differences between the S models, particularly the all-wheel drive cars, and the two-wheel drive Carreras. So first of all, we're going to take them both for a drive, and then I'll come back and talk around the cars themselves. I'm starting off the driving part of this video in the 911 Carrera Coupe, which is a PDK. It's a 2014 car. It's largely identical to the launch model, which was a 911 Carrera, and the Carrera S, which some were registered as early as end of 2011, but the first ones for the majority were 2012. Now this car is a deep black pearl car, and I'll show you later on the differences aesthetically and go through some of the dimensional differences between this and the Carrera 4S, which I'm going to drive after this one. But this car has the 3.4 litre flat six. This car produces 345 horsepower at just over 7,000 RPM, and it has a peak torque of 288 foot-pounds, and that is at around just over 5,000 RPM. I think it's 5,002 or 5,400 RPM. It will do 60 with the PDK box in Sport Plus mode. This car has chrono, so you can see this additional clock here, which is also a stopwatch when you tell it to be a stopwatch within the LCD panel on the dashboard. It will do 60 in around 4.3 seconds. I think it's actually 4.2, which is plenty fast enough. The sort of variation between this and the 4S isn't huge. That will do 60 in just under 4 seconds. So they're very, very similar in terms of their peak performance. It's just how they deliver it. The two cars actually weigh very similar, despite the other one being the Widebody and four-wheel drive. They're both, all intents and purposes with equipment and everything, around 1.5 tons. So there's not a huge weight disadvantage or advantage of having the two-wheel drive. It's all down to feel. The 3.4, I would say, even though it lacks in power, around 50 horsepower, 55 horsepower, it feels a tad more responsive on initial go, because it is a slightly smaller, lighter engine, so it will just suddenly respond a lot quicker. Obviously the driving mode dictates a lot of how fast it responds. So if you put it in Sport Plus, it's awake instantly. You heard the gear change just then, straight from, I think it was in sixth, it's gone straight to second. If you put it in manual mode, you can dictate where the gear change is. So you could have it in Sport Plus, not have to sit it at all the way to the red line. If you have it in manual, you can change up earlier, but you still get that faster shift speed, quicker throttle response, and I think the steering also adjusts accordingly as well. Now how it drives, well, all the coupes drive very, very well, as do the cabriolets as well, but the coupes do feel that extra bit more rigid than the convertible. There's very little, if any, rattling at all, even though this car is now 2014, so it's an 8-year-old car. Doesn't have any rattles or shakes or wobbles, and any car that you look at shouldn't have any of those issues. If it does, it could be something as simple as a wheel alignment, or it could be a bushing in one of the lower arms, front or rear, or it could be the top mounts at the front coming to the end of their life, the rubber perishing, and there's a little bit extra play. There should also be no vibrations at speed through the wheels. If there is, then one of the wheels might need rebalancing, which does happen because obviously they're big, wide wheels. The Carreras, as standard, came with 19-inch wheels with a thicker sidewall. and I'll go through the different tyre sizes and things when I'm with the cars static next to each other. It has a little bit more pliancy through the rubber as a result, because the sidewalls are that bit taller, unless it's been spec'd from the factory with the 20-inch wheels, or someone's fitted the 20-inch wheels that come on the S and the 4S. But basically they are phenomenal to drive, the Carreras. They don't feel like a slouch in whatsoever at any speed, and the comfort is exactly the same as in the 4S and the S, because you can have all the same options. In fact, this car has Sport Chrono Package Plus, which the 4S doesn't. So it has the extra button, the Sport Plus. The 4S just has the Sport button, but this car doesn't have the Sports exhaust, whereas the other one does. So you could spec a Carrera exactly the same as a 4S or an S. So have a look carefully at what the car you're looking at has, rather than just saying, oh, it's an S, so it'll be higher spec, because you might actually find that there's some things which are on one car versus another, and you'd be surprised. This car also has Sport Seats Plus, which the 4S does as well, so it has exactly the same level of sportiness in the seat position and how you feel behind the wheel. It does have the multi-function steering wheel, which has the more standard shift paddles or shift mechanism, which is a little rocker switches, so you can change gear up or down on either side, whereas the 4S does have the sport design steering wheel, which can increase the level of involvement with changing gears with the PDK box. So lots to consider when looking at these. This is a phenomenal driving car, and I'm now going to switch to the Carrera 4S. Okay, I'm just starting the second part of the driving section of this Diary of a Porsche Specialist in the second car, which is the 991 Carrera 4S. This is a late 2013 car, so very similar age to the 991 Carrera I was just driving, the 2014. It is finished in Basalt black metallic, whereas the Carrera was finished in deep black pearl, and I'll show you on this cloudy day. It might not be too obvious when I show you them on the camera, but the deep black pearl seems to have smaller metallic flecks, and they're in silver, whereas Basalt black has slightly larger flecks and they're sort of more of a silvery gold, so they have a completely different look when the sun's out. Now this car is also the coupe. It's also got the optional panoramic roof, and I've actually set the camera slightly higher so you can actually see the glass. It does let a little bit more light in. They're both triple black, so they have black Alcantara headlining, the extended black leather, which is standard on all UK 991 Carrera S, 4S. All the different models have extended leather, apart from if you have specced something different, say like Alcantara. This car also has a 7-speed PDK. It's the larger 3.8 litre flat 6, which I was talking about with the 991. So it will do 60 in just under 4 seconds, 400 horsepower versus 345, all delivered at just over 7,000 RPM in peak terms. The torque is 325 foot-pounds in this versus 288 foot-pounds in the smaller engine 3.4 Carrera. This is four-wheel drive, so it will divert between 5% of torque up to 40% of torque to the front wheels. And there is actually a display on here on the right-hand LCD panel. The others are all needles, normal traditional dials, but there is one LCD panel, and you can see the distribution of torque live as two charts, which is a nice little stat to see how much power it's diverting to the front, and it will do that based on the amount of slip it's detecting at the rear, how much power is going down from one side to the other. Obviously, road conditions such as the grip level due to rain, temperature, even the surface. Different surfaces are obviously slippier than others. Gravel versus an old tarmac versus a new tarmac are all different, and the car will adjust how much power it's sending to the front, and it is that little bit extra level of safety. However, the two-wheel drive never really feels unsettled unless you really, really push it, say on a track. With good tyres, both will perform really, really well no matter what the weather. So that's one thing to mention about the four-wheel drive is, yes, it feels that little bit more planted all the time, but the two-wheel drive never feels like you're in danger, especially if you're just driving on the road and not pushing it excessively. They both have the 7-speed PDK box. This car doesn't have Sport Chrono, but it does have the Sport button, so at the press of a button it will wake up. This car does have PASM though, the switchable sport suspension, which the other car doesn't. So that also lowers the car 10 mil all the time. It's not that when you activate the sports mode of that, it drops the car. The car's ride height is static, but it is around 10 mil lower all the time, so it just looks that little bit more sporty from the outside when you see it from any angle. This car's also got the 5mm wheel spacers, which also could be factory fitted on any of the cars, and it just moves the wheels out and slightly fills the arches a little bit more, as do the 20-inch wheels. So the 20-inch wheels are the same width, 8.5 inches at the front, 11 inches at the back, but they're 20-inch diameter on the Carrera 4S and the Carrera S. Whereas from the factory, those same width wheels are 19 inches on the Carrera models, and it's 4.4 centimeters wider at the back. So you do feel a little bit more stable, I'd say. I'm just going to steer to the side a little bit. You feel a little bit more stable because you've got that slightly wider rear end. The whole car is the same width in the sense of the wing mirrors are actually the thing that sticks out the most, and on both cars they are actually folding as well, so you can fold them in electrically. If a car doesn't have folding mirrors, electric folding mirrors, you can fold them in manually, so that's something else to note, is your car doesn't necessarily have to have electric folding mirrors to get the mirrors folded in if you need to fit in a tight garage, for example. Just like the other one with the roof open, it lets in quite a lot of air, and it doesn't buff it too much. I'm doing 50 miles an hour now, and it's absolutely fine. Hopefully you can still hear me through my external mic, but it doesn't disrupt anything, and it actually is quite a nice open air experience. You can actually have it on tilt, so there's a one button system here, down here, so I'm just going to put it on tilt now, which just at motorways that's perfect because motorway speed, because it lets in a little bit of air without sort of letting in too much wind noise. Some people ask me about tyre noise as well. I think it's all dependent on what you're used to. I mean, 911s typically are quite noisy at motorway speed, obviously dependent on the surface. There are things you can do to improve it, such as the recommended pressures are set quite high. You can lower them sort of 2 to 4 psi, and that does improve it. But by their nature of having such a wide tyre on these, they're 305 width rears. On the 19-inch Carrera wheels, the rears are 285, so they're going to be noisy tyres because there is that much rubber in contact with the road at all times. So it's just something you have to get used to, but it's not encroaching to conversation or listening to the stereo. This car has the Bose system, so it's got 12 speakers rather than 10, I think, or 11 in the ASK Sound Package Plus. I think it's 235 watts in Sound Package Plus. This is 445, so it has a little bit more power, especially when you turn the bass up. Neither car sound terrible when you turn the volume up. They don't distort or cackle. They're very, very good stereos, both of them. There was another option for Burmeister above that. I haven't had a car with Burmeister yet, but hopefully at some point I'll have one. They're all decent stereos. This car in sport mode is just absolute perfection. It has the sports exhaust, so immediately it's louder, it's more aggressive. The 911 Carrera sounds lovely, but this, even from startup, with the valves open, it will open the valves on startup, just sounds in a different league to a car without the sports exhaust. And this has got the optional sport design steering wheel, so you can feel, even in auto mode, you can use the paddles just like in a race car to go exactly where you want. For me, this is the steering wheel to have with a PDK box, and you can retrofit it into cars that don't have this steering wheel. So if you see a car that you like and it doesn't have this steering wheel, just budget in saving up for this steering wheel, which can be fitted at any main Porsche dealer or at a Porsche Specialist. I just love driving this car. I love driving both. For me, the Carrera is a phenomenal sports car. It's a great way of getting in to a 991 series for that little bit cheaper. It will do basically 80%, maybe 85% of what the Carrera 4S will do. The styling's a little bit different, obviously, with it not being a wide body without that rear strip at the back, so those things do command a premium, as does the four-wheel drive system. You can expect to pay between, I would say, £5,000 to £10,000 for a 4S versus a Carrera, and the Carrera S sits somewhere in the middle of the two. But yeah, this car just, for me, is the perfect GT sports car. And whilst the Carrera is a phenomenally fast car as well, this one just delivers everything. Instead of 9 out of 10, it's 10 out of 10 in terms of the feedback, the responsiveness, how it makes you feel behind the wheel. You know that this is that little bit level of special. I think over time as well, people will look back at these as being the more collectible version because of that iconic rear set, the rear stance, that rear strip, the wider body shell, and especially if you get a car like this with really, really nice options both on the inside and outside, your money is relatively safe, as safe as it can be in any car. These sports cars have been holding their value very, very well. So I think that's where I'll leave this video. In the driving side, is basically just saying that the Carrera 4S predictably is the more dynamic, more capable, better styled car, but it's again comparing 9/10ths with 10/10ths. So you've seen how they drive and how they compare on the road. Now I'm going to talk through some of the differences of these two particular cars and the options they have. They both look the same black metallic, and on the camera it might look slightly different, but this car is actually Basalt black metallic, which has got like a gold metallic fleck. I'll show you that now that the sun's out. So that's a close-up of it. And then this one is finished in deep black pearl metallic, which is more of a silvery metallic with more flecks in it, which is a newer colour. This is LC9W and this is LC9X. So very subtly different. This is sort of like a whiter chrome black. This is more a gold chrome, if that makes sense. They both have the optional panoramic roof, and one I've left closed. This one's been left open so you can see the difference. So that panel sort of comes out and slides across there, and when it's closed, this is exactly how it looks. Has black plastic here, glass which is tinted, and black plastic. If this colour wasn't black, then it would be more obvious. Say if it was a red or a white or a blue, you would see that whole section being dark and black. The wheels are different, so the Carreras as standard could be spec with 20 inches, but as standard they came with 19-inch diameter wheels, and these are the Carrera V wheels, and it has tyre pressure monitoring, so it has different coloured valves there. The S models, the 2S and the 4S, came with 20-inch diameter wheels. So there they are. They are these are the Carrera S Mark III wheels, and they are finished in satin platinum without tyre pressure monitoring. And the brake discs and the calipers themselves are bigger, and they're always finished in red on the S, unless they're specified in a different colour by the original owner. These are normally black, but these have been finished in red as well to sort of look like the S model brakes. The headlights are very different. So these are the standard bi-xenon headlights with the silver plastics on the inside, which lighten up the car quite a lot compared to these, which are the optional black edition PDLS Porsche Dynamic Lighting System headlights with a rotating bezel, so the xenon headlight actually moves as you go around a corner to sort of light up as the corner as you go around it. The bumpers, the front bumpers are the same, except for the ducts in the side are partially blocked off on the Carrera, whereas on the 4S they're wide open here. Something I haven't noticed before until I saw these two cars side by side, but it's a subtle difference. At the sides, all the two-wheel drives have a metal lower sill, which has got like a textured finish to sort of protect it from stone chips, and then it has a rubber end piece here in front of the rear wheel. The 4S has a plastic lower rear sill protector, and it flares out at the back to sort of highlight the other big difference on these cars, which is the wider body shell. So the 4S's and the Carrera 4s are 4.4 centimeters wider, so that rear wheel arch sticks out quite a bit more. So when you see it like that and compare it to this one, the rear arches look more pronounced. Also, the 4S's and the 4s have a red light strip which is LED, and it lights up at night when you've got the side lights on or the headlights on. It's not a brake, it doesn't get brighter, it's just a single brightness, and you don't have that on the two-wheel drive models. The headlights also, the rear lights also come in red LED as standard, but you could upgrade them to these optional clear glass look rear lights. As standard, these cars, the Carrera 3, so this is a Carrera 3.4. The Carreras are all 3.4 litre flat sixes in the 991 generation 1. Whereas in the S models, there's a 3.8 litre. So this car has 400 horsepower and 325 foot-pound of torque, which we've already talked about in the video during the driving bit. And the 3.4 flat six has 345 horsepower, 288 foot-pound of torque. But their acceleration times are actually very similar, and I'll go through those with the paperwork I've got. So on a Carrera, on a 3.4, the lower exhausts are normally just an oval there, but you could upgrade them, and this one was upgraded from the factory to the quad tailpipe finishers. If you've got a car with the oval exhausts, you can have those fitted, so you can make it look like exactly like this one is. They're not cheap. I think they're around £700 or so. I may be wrong. On some cars they're as cheap as £400, but that's still, to me, a lot of money for just the finishers. It's not actually the exhaust system itself, it's just the end pieces that go on the end of the exhaust. On the inside, these are actually very similarly spec'd. All the cars come with extended black leather, so extended leather, normally in black, but people could spec other colours. So the doors, the dashboard, the seats are all finished in leather. This car has embossed headrests, has the red seat belts, and the hardback sport seats. They're called Sport Seats Plus, with a four-way electric. It has the carbon door entry guards with the model designation, and it has Bose, which is a 12-speaker sound system, and they both have the PDK. This car doesn't have Sport Chrono, so it doesn't have the stopwatch on the top of the dash there, which works as an analog clock normally. It does have the Sport button, which works with the 7-speed ZF semi-automatic gearbox. It changes how it works, and I described that on the drive. It has a switchable sports exhaust, the switchable suspension PASM, heated seats I've already mentioned, 2-zone climate control, and it has DAB, the telephone module, the 10GB jukebox, and the extended nav system. And it also has cruise control and the sport design steering wheel. So this steering wheel is quite a bit different to the other one in the other car. It has full-size paddles which follow the wheel and are, I think, more involving with the PDK box. Has folding electric mirrors as well, and red seat belts. So there's the red belts there. So going into this one, so there's that different wheel, the multifunction steering wheel with the shift paddles. The 7-speed gearbox is the same, but it has, rather than just a big vent there, it has the stopwatch for Sport Chrono Package Plus. So it has an additional button here for Sport Plus. So that, in the other car there was the switchable suspension. This car doesn't have that because it was an option, but it doesn't have the sports exhaust which the other one had. So they're the differences between the two. If the other car didn't have red belts, it would have exactly the same black belts like this one here. And there's the standard door entry guards. If the other one didn't have the carbon ones, that would say just Carrera 4S, like this one here. And there's no Bose on this one. This is Sound Package Plus, so it's a 9-speaker 235 watt system. Now, because this car has PASM, it sits 10mm lower than this car, and you can see when you look at the space between the wheel and the tyre and the wheel arch there, compared to this one here, there's less of a gap. And also this car is fitted with 5mm wheel spacers from the factory. So there's that little disc there in between the brake disc and the wheel. There's a little spacer, and then wheel bolts that are 5mm longer. So this one doesn't have that disc in between the two. So looking at the folders of the two, so four-wheel drive Carrera 4S, 1852 width versus 1808 on the Carrera, 1296 height on the 4S versus 1303. So it's about 7mm difference in total. The length is the same, 4491 versus 4491. The wheels are 8.5 and 11 inches, 8.5 and 11, and then the tyre size is 235 40 19, 285 35 19, 245 35 20, 305 30 20. So the sidewalls are much bigger on the 19-inch wheels because obviously they've got the same rotational distance. It's a 3.8, and it's all changed by the cylinder bore. 102 versus 97. The compression, the stroke are identical. 7-speed gearboxes. So you can see there are some differences between the two in terms of their performance, the engine size, and the dimensions, but nothing huge. I mean, the weights are very similar, just under 1.5 tons. The weight is actually probably more dependent on the options that fit, such as the glass roof, Bose system, what seats, that kind of thing. So yeah, very, very lovely cars, both of them. And that is the 911 experience for me to perfection as an everyday car. This car is also fantastic as well, and is probably about 80 to 90% of the experience of that one for a little bit less money. So it's all down to what your priorities are. Do you want the car that essentially to most people is going to look exactly the same, it's going to feel exactly the same, or do you want the one that sort of takes it that one step further and makes it, for me, absolutely perfect in terms of handling, performance, and full ownership experience? I love the simplicity, the relative simplicity of the Carrera, the responsiveness of the engine, but at the same time I love the sort of all-round unbeatable performance of the larger 3.8 litre engine cars, and the sound of them as well. So it is a tough one, but I would probably go with the Carrera 4S if I had the budget for it. But if I wanted to get an 911 and I couldn't get stretched to a 4S, but I could get a Carrera, I wouldn't ever feel shortchanged. So that's my summary of the two models side by side, driving and walking around them. I hope you found the video useful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment below. Thank you for watching.